Yoon-ho really had no idea what was going on. That's why he had only watched Jongin, Dongwook and Taeju try to get Jinwoo to join their groups. Yoon-ho remembered Jongin looking confused about why he wasn't trying to recruit anyone. If he were Jinwoo, he wouldn't want to join a group either. Trying to get Jinwoo to join was probably a waste of time. But there were still ways to work with him without asking him to join. It was time to try a different plan. Suddenly his phone buzzed with a new text message. President Baek pulled his phone out of his pocket. It was a message from the Hunter Association with the final list of hunters who would be going on the Ant mission in 4 days. He looked past the names of the Japanese hunters to find the Korean hunters on the list. His eyes got very wide, and he jumped up from the bench. There is no Jinwoo-sung. The news spread quickly online. South Korea and Japan worked together to destroy magical creatures that had turned Jeju Island into a ruined place. What bigger news could grab the attention of people in Korea? The agreement between Korea and Japan was big news, shown on the front page of newspapers and discussed constantly on television. However, it seemed like only people in Korea were very interested. Even though Japan sent 3 times as many people to participate, news outlets in Japan didn't say much about it. Korea didn't notice this lack of attention at the time. People online didn't like the articles written about this situation. They wondered what should be done about South Korea not securing an important area. Some asked why others had to fix the problem caused in South Korea. They wanted to know if South Korea had already paid for any harm that might have happened. People thought the hunter groups in Japan weren't doing a good job, and that the hunters in South Korea were acting carelessly. Everyone hoped the mission on Jeju Island would succeed. 2 countries were working together, but they each had different goals. As the time to begin the mission got closer, it became clear they didn't completely agree on what they wanted to achieve. Despite this, those few days were the best Jinwoo had had, since his mother became sick. He was happy and hopeful. Many things were different now. First, Jinwoo had brought Kyuonji home after she left the hospital. It was good to be back. When they opened the apartment door, they saw a big mess Gina had made in the living room while Jinwoo was away. Jinwoo gently pinched Gina's cheek, and Kyuonji laughed and told him not to. It was funny that the first thing she did after 4 years was clean the apartment. Jinwoo tried to tell her not to, but she really wanted to, so the kids helped too. They all worked hard, and their faces lit up as the apartment began to look bright and clean. The house had felt lonely without his mother, but now it felt comfortable. Jinwoo slept well for the first time in a long time. When he woke up and saw breakfast on the table, he realized his mother was home. Kyung-hee, who was cutting green onions in the kitchen, looked at him. "Did you sleep well, son?" He smiled at her. "Still a little sleepy." "Yes, I did." On TV, a person who knew a lot about these things was talking about what was happening. The magical ants are changing very quickly. A very excited guest sitting next to the speaker asked a question. Can magical creatures change? Wasn't the ant found in Japan just a change in its normal form? You are right. When these changed creatures have many babies, and become the biggest part of the group, we call that evolution. A video showed what the ants looked like during the first and second attempts to get rid of them. When they first appeared, they moved on the ground like regular ants. They were really just very large ants. But soon after that, this video shows the ants from the 3rd mission. The ants were now walking on 2 legs, just like people. Their large heads were smaller now, and they moved more quickly. They could use their 4 remaining feet like hands. They were almost like a mix of humans and ants. This species had changed a lot in just 2 years. And this is the creature that caused so much damage in Japan.
Wow!
The crowd was very surprised by what they saw. The ant looked even more like a human, and also had large wings growing from its back. A surprised performer on the show blurted out, "Can that thing fly?" "That is right." This news also led to an agreement between Korea and Japan. Jinwoo quietly switched off the television when he heard those words. He really wanted to be part of the mission to fight the monsters. When President Go asked him, he was excited about the chance to become stronger, but then he started to think clearly. It hadn't even been a full day since his mom had woken up. He hadn't told her he was now a hunter. He remembered how many sleepless nights she had when his dad disappeared inside a gate. Because of those memories, Jinwoo didn't want to tell his mother he was going to Jeju Island. He really didn't want to say yes. He wanted to spend a few days with his family. His dream had finally come true. and he didn't want to give it up for something else. Jinwoo made a difficult decision, and finally said the words, "Can't go." This was more important than getting rewards. This was the only reason he had worked so hard to become stronger. He didn't regret his decision at all. But there was something strange. Why wasn't Jinwoo Sung's name on the list for Korea? He might be a very powerful hunter now, but people don't become that strong so quickly. Someone who starts at the lowest level usually stays there. I wonder if he was frightened and left. There were 21 of the best hunters from Japan, and even a hunter who had stopped working from Korea, but Jinwoo Sung wasn't among them. Is he really acting like this after becoming one of the best? It was really embarrassing. Jinwoo didn't like that some people were criticizing him without knowing everything that happened. He was mostly worried about how it was making his sister feel. He didn't really care what others said, and his mom was okay because she didn't use the internet, but Gina seemed to check what people were saying online. Jinwoo bit his lip and set down his phone. He couldn't do anything at the moment. Taeyoung-hee had gone to bed, and Gina wouldn't be home for a while. Jinwoo was thinking about going for a walk to feel better when his phone rang. The phone showed a name, and he smiled. Beep. Boss. It's me, Jinho. Hey. He wondered if Jinho was still staying at a motel. Have you found a place to live? Or are you still at that motel? Oh, no, I got my own place recently. Luckily my mother helped me. So hearing Jinho laugh again, felt good. Jinho talked about how he was doing, then suddenly remembered why he called. By the way, boss, I found an office space. Can you come see it? What was he talking about? An office. At Jinwoo's confused look, Jinwoo confidently replied, for our guild headquarters. Of course. We need an office to start a guild. Boss. This kid is future vice president. Jinwoo seemed to have big plans to create a guild that could compete with the Hunters or White Tiger guilds. Jinwoo rubbed his chin. He would be surprised when he told Jinwoo he planned to continue working alone, as the only raid member in the guild. Jinwoo had simply asked Jinwoo to join him, but now that he had to explain his idea for the guild, he didn't know what to say. So what do you think, boss? Jinwoo understood why Jinwoo sounded so sure of himself when talking about this space. He nodded. Looking around the office, it was in a good spot. I found the best place near your apartment. It was very clean. I made sure it was new. It's like putting new wine in new bottles. You know? Plus it was really big. I'm going to build a guild that's better than the top 5. Boss. Jinwoo was very determined. I understand he's excited, but I wish he wouldn't involve me. Jinwoo wondered if it was too late to ask Jinwoo to go back to Yojin Guild. Jinho thought it was probably impossible for Chairman Yu to welcome his son back after being upset with him. Jinho looked surprised that Jinwoo seemed to be considering it. Boss, don't you like this place? It's not that. So can I sign the lease? Boss. Sure. The office was large so the rent would be costly, but it would still be a small part of the guild's money. Jinwoo figured it was alright to let Jinho be excited for a while. Jinwoo didn't want to tell Jinho that only the two of them would be using such a big office. Oh, Jinho clapped his hands together. So, who will be the last member we choose, sir? Last member? Did I say we would hire someone else? I was confused because I always try to keep my promises. Jinho excitedly explained. When you start a group, you need at least 3 hunters. A leader, a second in command, and at least one other person were those the minimum number of people needed to begin a group. Since at least 3 hunters were needed for even the easiest gates, that made sense. But no hunting groups would waste time on those simple gates. Jinwoo thought about who could join him. He needed one more person, and it would be best if they were a hunter who didn't really want to hunt anymore. Just someone to help meet the team size requirement. Why am I only thinking of girls? He remembered a high school student who had stopped trying to become a hunter, and a healer who had moved back home to Busan. Just then, Jinwoo spoke up. Oh, I just remembered something. Jinwoo asked, do you have someone in mind? Jinwoo replied, no, not exactly, boss. Someone was trying to reach you.
You, sir.
Jinwoo became curious. Someone had found out how to contact him through Jinwoo. They don't appear to be connected publicly. To everyone else, they only know each other as a team leader and a team member. Someone had clearly contacted Jinwoo to get a message to Jinwoo. Jinwoo frowned. Who wants to talk to me? I don't really know, sir. A person from another country who spoke English. Just a minute. Jinwoo checked his pockets and found a note in his wallet. He said he would be in Korea until the 17th. and he really wanted you to call him sir. The note only had a phone number and a room number for a hotel. Jinwoo flipped the paper over, but there was nothing else written on it. The 17th is 3 days away. A person who spoke English. Who could this be? No one came to mind. Suddenly I need to go back. Jinwoo looked serious. What? Going home so soon, boss? Jinyo, who had been excited to have dinner with Jinwoo as a team for the first time in a while, looked sad. But Jinwoo wouldn't change his mind. I'll be leaving now. Jinyo quickly hid his disappointment, and bowed as he always did. See you, boss. By the time he looked up, Jinwoo was already gone. It was getting dark, and every alleyway was covered in shadows. Juminon, a college student, was walking home and felt scared. Someone was following her. She hoped it was just a coincidence, and they were going the same way. She remembered reading about this happening to people online. It seemed like both girls and boys sometimes had this problem. Men usually walked at the same speed or faster than women, but trying to walk past a woman quickly might scare her because of their footsteps. Walking too far behind a woman could also make her wonder what was happening. Also, walking down a dark, scary alley with a flickering streetlight was enough to make anyone feel uneasy. Jimin looked behind her. A man with a hat was walking quietly behind her, keeping his head down. He seemed a little suspicious, but wearing a hat isn't against the law. Jimin didn't want to keep walking with the man who was following her, so she decided to do something about it. She stopped walking and pretended to tie her shoes. The man walked past her and continued on ahead. Phew, she said quietly, relieved as she watched him turn the corner and disappear. She closed her eyes and put her hands together like she was praying. She was sorry she had ever doubted him. The man she didn't know. She looked around and fixed her clothes. Then she smiled and continued walking with energy. She had a lot of homework to do. Even if she ran home, she still wouldn't have enough time to finish it all. She also had a big test to study for. Which chapters would be on the test? Jimin felt sad, thinking about having to study all night. But when she turned the corner, her eyes grew wide. If you yell, you're in trouble. The man who had walked past her before was waiting, and he was holding a kitchen knife. He looked very upset. Some women have died here, but you already knew that, right? Oh, she couldn't move, and she felt all the color leave her face. She couldn't even yell. The man removed his white mask and smiled at her. Come with me. Buzz, Buzz. They were all alone, with just a shaky street lamp watching. Oh, Chalmup Jim, barely whispered the words as she tried to step back, but her ankles felt heavy and stuck. She could only cry. The bad man looked around. The girl was very scared and couldn't run, so he decided to hurt her right there. No one else was nearby, and he didn't think any cameras were watching. That's why he liked this area so much. He smiled in a creepy way and tried to stab the girl, but just then, a hand quickly came from the shadows and stopped the knife. When he turned his head and saw a strong man standing there. The man's hood was pulled up, hiding most of his face in shadow. Was he wearing gloves? The man held a knife in his hand. But there wasn't any blood. Who are you? He asked. The man with the knife tried to pull it free, but it wouldn't move. He decided to ignore the person and ran away quickly. What a strange person. The killer glanced back multiple times. The man was still following him and looking around. What was going on? The killer turned onto a different street, trying to lead the person to an empty field where he had intended to take another person. If the person being chased had gloves or something to protect their hands, the attacker would have to aim for a different spot. When they were near each other, the attacker slowed down to let the person chasing him get closer. Just as the chaser was right behind him. You are really bothering me. The attacker quickly turned around, pulled out a sharp tool, and stabbed the other person in the chest. Were you looking down on me? The killer's hand holding the pickaxe shook. Why was his chest so strong? Was he wearing something to protect himself? Or did he have something else hidden under his clothes? The serial killer asked angrily. What's under your shirt? If he could sense magic, he wouldn't have needed to ask. But even after trying to attack a few times, he didn't think he might be fighting someone who hunts dangerous people. A quiet voice came from under the hooded jacket. I'm wondering about something. It was Jinwoo speaking. He tossed the knife he had taken earlier. Why are you doing this? Why? Are you going to lecture me? I just want to know if you have a reason. The killer laughed unkindly. Jinwoo had suddenly shown up and kept following him, even after he saved the woman, so he thought Jinwoo was trying to be a hero. But this guy is strange. isn't he? The killer wondered if Jinwoo was like him in some way. Perhaps he could change what happened if he could get the other man to agree with him. Why would I do that? He asked. Well, if I had to explain, because it's enjoyable. Enjoyable? The other man replied, sounding surprised. It's odd, but when I see people who seem less powerful, I really want to bother them. He couldn't finish what he was saying. He fell to the floor and held his left ankle. Something inside had broken. When he looked up, he saw the kitchen knife was back in Jinwoo's hand. How did Jinwoo get it back so quickly? Then, Jinwoo started to disappear again. This time it was his right ankle. The dangerous criminal struggled on the ground, unable to move, because his ankles were badly injured. Jinwoo checked the criminal's pockets and found a wallet and cell phone. What's wrong with you? Jinwoo didn't respond to the criminal's angry words. He called for an ambulance, and then looked at the identification card in the wallet, before putting everything back in the man's trembling hands. Surrender by midnight tomorrow. What? If you want to live. Jinwoo had said everything he needed to say. He sent one of his special soldiers into the shadow of the criminal, and gave him the same instructions. He wasn't sure how good these soldiers were at waiting, and high orcs generally didn't like to wait. But the new instructions were something they were good at. He actually hoped the soldier would live. The criminal needed to be alive so he could think about what he had done for a long time. Who are you? Jinwoo calmly walked away from the park, leaving the criminal shaking with pain and fear. In the distance he heard the sound of an ambulance. Once he was far enough away, he looked around to make sure no one was nearby before pulling down his hood. He had gotten to the scene just in time, all thanks to the shadow soldier, who found the criminal and told Jinwoo. Using the shadow exchange skill was really helpful. It was a very powerful skill, like one you'd find on a special strong stone. Every time he used it, he was pleased with the results. He wondered how much more useful it would be if he could use it more often, and it recharged faster. Later, while walking home. Wait a minute, he looked up and saw the moon high in the sky. That reminds him tomorrow was the day. The teams from Korea and Japan were going to start their important mission. Jinwoo wasn't on the team, but he felt his heart beat quickly. He wondered how the hunters on the raid were feeling. He thought about the few very strong hunters he knew and hoped they would come back safe. Late at night, Ryuji was practicing in the training hall of the Hunters Association of Japan. He was surrounded by two very skilled hunters in front, and one behind him. Ryuji took a deep breath and opened his eyes. Here I go. The three hunters quickly attacked him. But thud! The three hunters fell to the ground.
Good job.
You're amazing, Mr. Godo. We can't beat you. The three hunters stood up, which they could do because Ryuji hadn't used his full strength. Ryuji quietly nodded to show he'd heard them. Just as I thought. I feel strong. If he had to describe how he was doing, he would say he was in perfect shape. He felt excited and full of energy whenever he thought about being successful in Korea. But why did he feel this way? After everyone else had gone, Ryuji just looked off into the distance, remembering a certain day. Jinwoo-sung. Who was that man? The more Ryuji thought about him, the more upset he became. He moved his head to feel more alert. It didn't matter now. Jinwoo wasn't going to be part of the attack, so President Matsumoto's plan could move forward without problems. If Korea lost all of its best hunters during this mission, they would have to let Japan take the lead. People in Japan wanted Korea to provide something to make up for past issues, but they would likely be happy later. When the time arrived, what could Jinwoo-sung accomplish on his own? No matter how powerful he was, or if Ryuji was wrong about something, it looked good for Japan that Jinwoo would not be joining the attack tomorrow. This meant things would be okay. Everything depended on the next day. Ryuji smiled softly, as he stood in the empty gym under the moonlight. Thank you very much for helping, said the head of the TV station, bowing deeply to the person with the camera. It was a strange situation, but the person filming wasn't a regular camera operator. He was a very skilled hunter with an A-rank license. Everything depended on this for our group. The company had used half of its yearly money to buy the rights to show the event, because many others wanted them too. But they made this big decision for a good reason. Only a few of the most powerful gates ever opened around the world, and even when one of these powerful gates did open, it was hard to get cameras inside to record it. This meant most people would only get to see a very difficult dungeon raid like this one. If something went wrong at another equally hard location soon, the whole event would be shown on television and online, but with a 10-minute wait so they could make sure everything was okay for viewers. How popular would this be? 70% of viewers. 80%. It was a smart decision to spend the money, especially because of how much money they could make selling the show to other countries. As long as the hunt goes well, people wouldn't want to see the best hunters get hurt by magical creatures, and the television station wouldn't want to show that on TV. The leader was hoping this fourth attempt to solve the problem would work, so looking down at the person filming, it didn't bother him much. If the person had asked, the leader would have happily gotten on his knees. "Don't worry too much, sir." The filmmaker reassured the leader.